platforms. Okay. This at the same time. So I'm streaming from one to another, which is good. Fun, wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Start. Go live. And now the second one always takes a little bit more time. Okay. I hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah.
Apparently, I am now live on um, LinkedIn and YouTube, and shortly should be Facebook. So I'm going to come back to you guys and go to our introduction. Welcome, everybody. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Gail Hanlon, and this is Everything Homeschooling. I am a 30-year home education veteran, and I've earned every one of these with my own 5 children, or 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy, and lots of other people's kids too, because I ran a home daycare, and then I took over an alternative private school, and I've been homeschooling my own children and other people's children for a long time. So that's me. And I'm here because I love what the experiences were that I had, and I like helping other people have wonderful, joyous, stress free, anxiety free, learning, loving times with their children and families. And that's why I do these shows. And I always find wonderful people that I want to share with you. So I hope you can give our guests a big welcome, because they're both wonderful people, and we plan on having a lot of fun. Today's topic is game schooling, Dungeons and Dragons, geek schooling, all those fun things that maybe we participated in when we were kids. I love playing games with my kids, and I was a big D&D gamer when I was a teenager, and in high school, when I went to a high school that had this game room, and that's where we all went for lunch and were late for our classes. But after that, even, I was gaming with people, with friends who were in university, people who were becoming doctors, people who were becoming lawyers, people who were becoming all these amazing things and going to university. They still loved gaming. And there's something so um, fabulous about being able to use your imagination and take on a different persona, and it gives you some freedom that you might not, if especially if you're a I'm an extrovert. If you're an introvert, it gives you an opportunity to live outside yourself for a little bit. And as an extrovert, um, I just couldn't keep out of trouble. Okay, so I'm gonna invite our first guest, my good friend Kimberly Sharon from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, Gail. I'm so excited to be on the show with you.
I am so excited too. I've missed you since you moved out there. We used to live not together, but live in London, same town together, and so we tell me about, I'm not. How did you find homeschooling for yourself and your family?
Well, actually, my homeschooling journey started with Gail because when my son was just a toddler and he was my firstborn, I was looking at all the different ways that you can do schooling, and homeschooling was one of them. And Gail was offering an in-person information session, and she had a fantastic session, and she talked about a lot about her daughter, especially who'd been doing amazing things and work far beyond her grade level. And yeah, I just loved it and loved Gail. And so she's a really good spokesperson for homeschooling.
Thank you so much. So, what brought you to geek schooling? How did that become something for you?
Yeah, I mean, I realized that we were learning so many things just by doing things that we loved. So, my son, especially when my son was 8 and he wasn't reading yet, but he was playing a Star Wars game, a Star Wars video game, and I had to sit there and read it all for him. So, so I told him, when you can read, you don't have to have mommy sitting beside you playing this game. You can read on your own. And that was really his reason for starting to read, so that he could read all the subtitles for all the Star Wars characters who weren't speaking English. So he learned to read in large part because of Star Wars, because he's tried really hard to be able to do that. But yeah, I realized, I mean, even in a Star Wars game that is not at all a learning game, he was learning all, like, there was puzzles in it. Like, it wasn't a puzzle game all over
Mhm.
altogether. Like, there are puzzle games like Myst, but it had puzzles in it. You had to think, you had to remember, you had to think through things. And in this one, this was KOTOR, back before SOTOR Online came out. So this is Knights of the Old Republic. It's way back, and you had to think about what you were going to say and what the consequences might be. So there were all these choices, so that you could end up as light side or dark side or somewhere in the middle, right? So he was just learning so much through the video game, and
And critical
um,
thinking too, like a
yeah,
lot of critical
exactly.
thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah, my husband's the Star Wars person in the family. I'm the Star Trek person in the family. And it's pretty funny because he's a PC computer person and I'm a Mac person, and our desk is the same desk, and we have his system over there that's PC, and my all my Apple products over here. And being in Canada, of course, he's a Tim Hortons coffee person, and I'm a McDonald's coffee person. So we are complete opposites in a lot of our things. But yeah, I when I found your website, I fell in love with all the work that you'd put into it. and my kids loved it too. Whoops, that is not looking at the right screen. Hang on one second. We go to the correct one. And wait a minute. There. That's it there. And I'll bring this up so everybody should see it. How's that? Everybody see that?
Perfect.
Awesome. So now I'm going to go back over here. So geekschoolingguide.com is one of your websites.
Correct.
And 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 I love it. You've got your podcast. And how long have you been doing the podcast?
Actually, the podcast is launching this month. I've been appearing on a lot of podcasts, but yeah, watch for the podcast coming soon to all the podcast platforms near you. So I'm in the middle of. I've got it all set up. I just need to start recording. So.
And you've got your Geek Schooling How to Enjoy Delight Directed Learning at Home and mini course. So that's something
free,
that people
so
can
grab that.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's free, so go ahead and grab that on the website.
Nice. And
start you thinking outside the box so that you can, enjoy homeschooling with the things that your children are already doing.
So you've got Quantum Leap, one of my favorite shows, by the way. Love that.
Me too.
Yeah. And then you've got a Harry Potter part and Star Trek. Oh, I was so happy when I saw that. There has got to be. I've got a couple of books. One is they're all about the real science that is used in Star Trek, and I don't think people realize just how much intelligent conversation and experience is in there. So you've got so much stuff on here. I highly recommend everybody go to her website and check it out. I'm going to go back to you here. There we go. And that's I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for all you do for everybody there. All right. And I want to ask you a bunch more questions, but I'm going to hold off for now. We're going to go to Megan Gardner. So we'll come right back to you. Megan, is it Megan or do you pronounce it in a different way?
I'm pretty acceptable with Megan.
Okay.
It is, I pronounce it, and my family pronounce it with a slight A as in Megan.
Megan. Okay. Awesome. So Megan, tell us about you and what you do.
Sure. So my journey kind of started back in the days of Dungeons and Dragons. So when I was a kid, I found that I was most excited about learning when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends and our dungeon master, who was an adult. And he did a fabulous job of making the campaign experience educational, requiring us to really think outside the box in order to solve our dilemmas and to sometimes even research outside of the game environment in order to find solutions. So we sometimes went to the library to look up solutions that we could apply to the game. So that inspired me later in life, when I had my own children, to see games and stories as a way to educate. So I created an out-of-school learning environment called Guardian Adventures, and these summer camps where kids now come from all around the world to our camps. And it's overnight and day camps here in Massachusetts, US. And they play essentially, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but live. So some people may recognize the term LARP, live action role playing. Kids dress up in costumes, they battle monsters, they solve mysteries, but in order to power up like you think of in a video game, you have to learn STEM. So in order to be a spellcaster, you have to learn physics because all of the spells are based in physics. In order to learn how to sword fight, you have to learn geometry because, believe it or not, there's a lot of geometry in sword fighting. In order to be a healer, you have to learn biology and that sort of thing. So So these programs are now global. We have licensed programs all over the world, Korea and China and London. They're expanding a lot, and it's a lot of fun.
That is amazing. I love that idea of doing the live action because if you both probably know about this, but I'm a member of the Society for Creative Anachronism
Right.
and have been since 1983. And had 4 generations of my family in that. And that's a social organization that recreates the Middle Ages from 600 to 1600, and I just got my Kingdom newsletter in the mail, and where we dress up and take on a persona that could have lived in the Middle Ages. And I mean, I was young, um my nephew was in it. We had so many kids, and they'd learn how to make their costumes. So, do your kids make their own costumes? Do they?
Yes, they often
Yeah.
do, and they have to design their own backstory, so they write a whole story about their character, and they choose their skills, and then they have to learn STEM to power up those skills. And then another thing we do is that the stories we explore are not your typical Eurocentric Arthurian
Oh,
legends. We
good.
actually, yeah, we do stories from around the globe, but in order to explore a culture story, first we hire on a cultural educator from that culture. So, for example, when we explored Native American legends and stories, we hired Claudia Foxtree from the Arawak tribes, and then also a gentleman out of upstate New York who's from the Abenaki tribes. So we chose Arawak and Abenaki because Abenaki is up in the north by Canada, and Algonquin, and then the Arawak are down by they're in the Caribbean, the Taino tribes, and they're very different. So when people think of the nebulous term of Native American, they don't often realize that you are talking about an incredibly diverse culture, number of cultures. And so we brought these cultural educators on staff for a whole year, and for an entire year, we explored the stories of their people.
Wow.
And by doing so, we were helping the kids to understand. First of all, having them on staff, it made sure that all the stories that we represented were culturally appropriate, were presented in a sensitive manner, and they authorized which stories we depicted, the costuming, all of the language that we used, anything that we did to perform their stories, they had to approve.
Yes.
And then the kids began to learn after we've also worked with the Moroccan consulate and educators in Morocco to do Moroccan myths and legends. We've done Bulgarian myths, um, and such a wide range, Assyrian myths and legends. And in doing so, what happens is over the years, the kids begin to see that there's a lot of commonality in the stories. And in fact, these stories, despite the fact that the people's skin may be different, their language may be different, their clothing may be different, um, but the story is actually still essentially the same. And so they begin to see so much more commonality between themselves and the other who in textbooks they only get to read about, but in our adventures they get to see these stories come alive.
Right. That's oh, I just love that whole idea and wish I was a kid again so I could come to your camp. Um,
Me too.
so you hear that a lot from parents, don't you?
Yeah, we keep saying we're going to bronze a sign and put it up in the lobby because every parent who comes in just listens to what we're saying and then they shake their head and go, "Where were you when I was a kid?"
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm gonna pull up your website. Just give me a second. I want to get it right here. And with all the technology and stuff, and it's not perfect, but it's better than if we were in the the flu era back in the 1900s when we didn't have anything like this, right? So here, let's jump into this. Yes, there. Okay, I'm gonna have to leave us somewhere so that you can maybe talk about what we're seeing here. So,
Sure.
yeah, please tell us more.
So these kids are involved in a craft that's necessary, an engineering craft, because we do a lot of STEM. So, but the thing is about the activities that they're participating in pertain directly to the story. So, in this instance, I'm not exactly sure what this is because we do many of these types of crafts throughout the summer. But these are two young heroes who are putting together and assembling something that is vital to the story. So there's a problem that they've encountered in the story that a mystery they have to solve, and so they're constructing something in order to. This looks like it might be something for gardening, and they have to perhaps grow something to appease to a certain spirit in the story, and then that everything that they do is pertinent and applicable to the story, which is what makes the context and the lesson more applicable and enjoyable.
Yeah. So I see the young man with the costume and the cape
Mhm.
on, but the other little girl isn't. So that's an optional thing?
Yes, yeah, we just certainly don't make it a requirement. Most of the kids do come in some type of costume, but sometimes when you're doing a whole summer of this, your costume can get a little sweaty and smelly, and perhaps the parents didn't have the time to do the laundry that day. So it's actually it's okay to show up
So
without a
when did you
costume on.
start running these?
Um, wow, 2001. So
Wow.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so is
Yeah,
it all
my own girls grew up in this environment, and it's great because um, it it's was pretty impactful for both of them. For my oldest, she actually went on to join our costume design team because all of our staff wear very elaborate costumes. So and we hand create masks for them out of leather. So she made these masks, learned how to make them when she was like 15 years old, and she became so good at it that she went to college for sculpture with a specialty in creating these masks and costuming. And today she owns a company with global clientele. It's exploded in popularity. She can barely keep up with the demand now. And she has a website, Embercraft Creations. She's in very high demand now. In fact, I think she has something like a year-long waiting list for her
oh, is that
masks.
Ambercraft or Embercraft? Embercraft with an
Embercraftcreations.com.
E. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
So that's what she does. And then my youngest, she became really interested in the whole physics aspect of the Nerf. She actually wrote the curriculum of how a Nerf dart flies through the air in order for the kids to be able to gain certain like special abilities in our
nice.
Nerf zombie apocalypse version.
Nice.
She went on to study physics in college, and today she's pursuing her PhD, and she is currently in Switzerland at CERN at the Large Hadron Collider doing research.
That's so great. I see all the young people here having fun. So is it just in the summer or do you run it year
No,
round?
no, it's year round. It's year round. Of course, with the pandemic, we had
Yeah.
to go virtual for a while, and some of the things we're actually going to keep virtual, but the large part of our programming is live, and then we have other camps that run versions of our programs in other locations around the globe.
So where do kids come from? Like it's an overnight camp when they
Hmm.
come, they
Yes.
stay overnight? And so how many kids are we looking at here? Like what kind of numbers do you accommodate?
Um, Over the span of a year, we'll do 1,200 to 1,400 kids a year.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
like a dream for me to see that kind of thing happening. It's so great. And you've got all your partners here and
Yeah. Yeah, we do consulting as well. So Royal Caribbean is one of our larger clients. We create their onboard adventures that they've decided to roll out to their entire fleet now.
that's so great. And you've got just so much stuff in here. Like that's I was just blown out of the water when I met you on Clubhouse and listened to what you were doing and thought, wow, this is amazing. So if you ever need a Canadian connection, I think
Thank
there's
you.
a couple of us here who would love to help you expand.
For sure.
Sure. Well, we do licensing, so there is actually a if you
Yeah,
look up at the
I saw that.
you
Yeah.
click on the link at the top for licensing, you can find out more information about licensing our
Just
programs.
there,
One
license.
other thing I'd like to mention quickly, which is
Yeah.
a latest project we're working on, and I'm very excited about. We're creating a cultural educator database, and this is where anybody who wishes to explore a culture's stories or depict a culture in, say, a movie or a book or a performance will be able to go to our database and look up specialists in that culture. So members of that culture who
Wow.
are cultural educators. So we're taking just inquiry forms right now from people who are interested in either listing in the database or using it. And that link is culturaled.net.
Okay. I'm just going to write that down. ed
Yeah.
culturaled.net.
.net.
And
Yeah,
your
so if you go
daughter's
that,
what?
it'll bring you to a page on our website where you can fill out a form of interest. And then in about 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing the full database where people can put in their entries. We're seeking to collect thousands of cultural educators. We're reaching out to cultural centers around the world and educators around the world so that they can put in, it's free. You can put in your information so that this can be a resource. And I don't ever have to watch a movie now with a terrible depiction of a culture that I know they did not seek professional consultation on how to depict that culture.
Exactly, exactly. And your daughter's website is EMBER
Craft, yes, Ember
Craft
Craft Creations.com.
Creations. And you can make sure those are in the comments after the show.
Sure.
Creations. Um, And yeah, I was just unfortunately not able to have another young man guest, the son of a friend of mine. And he has an internship doing Dungeons and Dragons for the writer of the Young Sheldon show.
Oh, wow. That's
So,
great.
yeah, and, hopefully I'll have him on another day and another Friday afternoon, but I wanna get the 2 of you together here, and thank you both so much for coming on. I'm conscious of time because, previously my shows have been an hour long, and I've gotten feedback saying, "No, too long. We can't just, carve out that much time." So I do more shows, half an hour long, and we do a lot more. So we're coming up on that half an hour. Anything else you'd like to share about your your work, Kimberly? Last thoughts, things you want to
Um,
invite people to?
yeah, I mean, if you don't already know, um, by listening to Gail, everything is educational. So every time you play a board game, every time you play a video game, every time you do almost anything in life, you're learning, and it doesn't have to have educational attached to it. And that's a lot of what I do is I help parents think outside the box that way and realize their kids are learning all the time, and it's okay to let them read that comic book. It's
It
okay to let them play
doesn't
that
have
video
to be
game.
structured, right?
Exactly.
It does happen. Um, I think of just watching Star Trek and all the philosophical
Mm.
ideas that come up, the questions that people don't they're not comfortable asking or talking about in real life, and yet they pose a situation, and because it's with aliens, people can, kind of separate themselves from the tenseness of a situation, like the androgynous community or civilization, and the just so many different things in Star Trek that I that I think people are more willing to address when they're in a science fiction type of situation rather than, a live situation. But then it's a great opportunity for parents to have conversations with their kids, or educators to have conversations with the students, and ask them what they think about it and how they perceive it. And when they're playing games, those come out, right? And we can say, well, why did you do that, or what does that mean for you? So yeah, so thank you for mentioning that, because the unschoolers, and I was a radical unschooler and my daughter was an academic, and that was so challenging. um but yeah, I think you both have brought so much. Anything else that you guys want to mention before we head out?
Um, yeah, there's one more thing. If any of your patrons go over to guardup.net, there's a free online zombie adventure. It's an escape room
Okay.
that parents can download all the assets. It's not something you go in and you experience it on the platform. You actually learn how to run this adventure for your family or for a school of kids or whoever it is that you want, even as a birthday party. You download all the assets and you run this adventure yourself. And it is actually educational.
That is so one. Everything is educational. You live, like if you're breathing, you're learning, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and both of you being so generous to offer such great things for free on your website. And I urge anybody watching, everybody watching, to check out. I'll make sure that all the contacts are in the comments. And thank you again so much for joining me today. It's so thrilling. You guys
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
take care. All right. And yes, so another wonderful show, the 24th in the second season of my shows. So we're, I'm loving this and all the people that I'm meeting. So please share this with your friends. You can watch it over again. We are live streaming to LinkedIn, YouTube, and two different pages on Facebook. So you can watch this again and get all the information and share it with your friends and family. Take care, and I hope I'll see you next time on Everything Homeschooling.